we are just wasting time here. Because Pakistan, I have maintained, we are one people in two nations. And that is honestly what we are. And when I see...
But you can't say that about China.
No,
We're not one people in two nations. We in India seem to be so jealous of China's rise that we are all the time talking about China's rise and either trying to denigrate it or trying to say that that threatens us or trying to say that we are catching up with them. Why don't we just accept China's rise as a fact of life?
All these years, the Americans told us, 4 administrations starting from President Obama, that look, China is the enemy. So you have a role for us and it's a military role in the Indian Ocean region. Now this national security policy of President Trump says China is not the enemy.
Namaskar and welcome to our series under the rubric Money Ki Baat, Suneet ke Saath. I am Money and this is my wife Suneet. We have with us today a really important guest, Pravin Sawhney, who is the editor of Force magazine, has a background of having started with the Indian Army and is now perhaps one of India's most well-known defense analysts. And we are going to be discussing the question of whether we should be confronting or conciliating our two neighbors, China and Pakistan. Good, Pravin, may I begin by making a few remarks, and then I hope most of this program will really have you talking about the issues. When I was growing up, and in fact till very recently, we used to talk of India being confronted militarily on two fronts. One, Pakistan in the west, and two, China in the north. But I did start writing even before Operation Sindoor that with the Chinese having established themselves more or less where Alexander was in 326 BC when he was turned back, we now do not have two fronts, we have one front, in the sense that China and Pakistan both, that is Chin-Pak, are on the other side of the Indus. And therefore, we don't have two fronts to deal with. We have a single front on which both the Chinese and the Pakistanis would stand together if there were to be any serious threat to the territorial integrity of Pakistan. And this has more or less turned out to be true during Operation Sindoor. So I would first like you, Pravin, to tell our viewers what was the kind of collaboration between China and Pakistan during Operation Sindoor, particularly the opening night.
Can I please take you back, if you allow me, to the 5th of August 2019?
Yes.
Now, this is the day that India removed 370 from Jammu and Kashmir. And after that, the next day, 6th of August, Home Minister Amit Shah announced in Parliament now there will be 2 union territories instead of a state of Jammu and Kashmir. And he said that POK will be part of the Jammu and Kashmir Union Territory and Aksai Chin will be part of the Ladakh Union Territory. This was not acceptable to the Chinese at all because they are in physical occupation of Aksai Chin. Therefore, once the maps came out or they were about to be made, Shankar, External Affairs Minister, on the 11th of August, he traveled to China, met up with his counterpart Wang Yi and explained to him that, look, what we are doing on the map will change nothing on the ground. It will not affect the line of control, won't affect the line of actual control. But the Chinese said, no, what you are doing is cartographic aggression. We do not accept that. So it all starts from there. And how it starts is that from this date onward, because I have been a very keen observer of what's going on between India and Pakistan, and I had been writing about this also, that 2 changes happened. The first was at the political level, starting from President Xi Jinping down to whichever official was there of China. Whenever they spoke of Pakistan, the first thing they said was that China will support Pakistan's sovereignty and territorial integrity. And alongside, the people who were keenly observing the military side, they would have realized that the exercises that used to happen between the Pakistan Air Force and the Chinese Air Force, they actually started in 2012. But after 2019, they became very advanced. So it was very clear that if there is another crisis or if there is any problem, then the Chinese will stand behind Pakistan like strong, very rock iron.
Did you imagine even then
Yes.
that there would be Chinese commanders
Yes.
sitting in Pakistani control rooms and actually guiding missiles against our aircraft and guiding Chinese aircraft against our aircraft? Tell us of what happened in terms of manifesting this new Pakistan-China military relationship in a state of war vis-a-vis India.
You know, my sense is a little different. My understanding, which I have also written in my book, The Last War, that came out in 2022, is that the Pakistanis have been trained very well. And my sense is that the Pakistan Air Force, because of the good training, because of the equipment and the advanced exercises that they've done together, they are good enough to do everything on their own.
But this
Where
time,
they required the Chinese help was in what we call non-kinetic capabilities, which is the most important is the space capability. That means you need to have visibility round the clock. And this was conceded by the Director General of India after the operations were done. Officer called Lieutenant General Rajiv Ghai, that yes, they knew what is going on. So they had total visibility, advantage that the Indian side didn't have, because it matters a lot if you know what the deployments and the dispositions are of the other side, which is why on the night of 6th, 7th May, when we did our operation and they did their counter operation, and the next day, which is on the 8th of May, a senior officer of the Pakistan Air Force, Air Vice Marshal Aurangzeb, he held a briefing for the international media where he said that we were ready and we had electronic identification of all the aircrafts on the Indian side. And he was not bluffing.
They knew where each one of our Air Force planes were.
So there are two things, very important things. One is the visibility, and the other part is what we call electronic warfare. That only comes because you have advanced electronic warfare and you've been training with the Air Force, which is at the cutting edge. So what I was saying is that there are certain capabilities which are called non-kinetic capabilities, which are not kinetic.
what is kinetic mean?
Kinetic is when you impact, when you fire a missile, when you fire a gun, that is kinetic. A non-kinetic capability is like space capability, like what is called electronic warfare, that you jam the equipment of the other side. That is a non-kinetic capability, and theirs is very good because even in Balakot that happened in 2019, they showed a very good control of their electronic warfare. So all these lessons should have been learned on the Indian side. And actually, I don't blame the military leadership of India, because most of the people who are working in this area, they know that a lot of political interference is there in operational matters. In matters of war, when you don't understand a subject, but you start, curating the whole thing, then there can be problems.
Now, it's in this context that I would like to, for a moment, just only for a moment, shift the attention from the military factors to the political factors. After that opening night, the Indian Air Force has claimed that they had great successes over the next couple of days. However, on the diplomatic front, we seem to have completely failed because the Pakistanis and the Chinese got together literally the day after Pahalgam and produced a statement which was then unanimously released by the United Nations Security Council, in which they condemned terrorism, they deplored what had happened at Pahalgam. They said that anyone who is supporting or financing or arming or sponsoring any of these kinds of activities has to be condemned. But with Pakistan and China voting for it, they didn't name Pakistan. And since then, nobody has named Pakistan. Nobody, except for Taliban Afghanistan, who have their own problem with Pakistan, and genocidal Israel. This is a complete failure of diplomacy. Now, in the light of this, given that Mr. Modi had announced that Sindoor, the Operation Sindoor, would be open-ended, why do you think they're being so coy about the Red Fort blast a few days ago?
See, what has happened is that after Operation Sindoor, certain red lines were given publicly by the Prime Minister. The first thing he said is that Operation Sindoor is on pause. The second thing that he said, which is most important, publicly he said that any act of terror will be taken as an act of war. So, in my assessment, if they had said that this Delhi thing is a blast, the Pakistanis are behind that, that means then the people of India would have asked them, along with the opposition parties, that now this is an act of war, so you take action. So the point is that Operation Sindoor, as you rightly pointed out, military dimension is one. The other big thing that has happened is, which people don't seem to realize, that the international profile of Pakistan has shot up substantially, and there is a reason for that. So that is the reason, in my assessment, that needs to be analyzed very, very carefully. And if you want me, I can explain that.
I'd like you to explain it at a slightly later stage.
Okay.
Because now I want to bring in a third dimension.
Sure.
That with the national security strategy of the United States being announced by the Trump administration, I get the feeling that it is no longer chin pack, but chin pack us, that is China, Pakistan and the United States, who in a sense are together as the entity that is going to oppose any military action by us. And why do I say this? Not only because of what is written in the national security strategy, which you will be explaining to us, but also because Mr. Trump seems to be particularly annoyed with India for not accepting that it was he who mediated the ceasefire. And that is the basic reason why the Pakistan profile has been raised in the US State Department at the same time as the Indian profile has been downgraded. So talk to us about Chin Pak Us, that is China, Pakistan, US, in the light of the national security strategy of the Trump administration.
Since 1971 war, which was done by Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, and we created a new nation, Bangladesh, the assessment of the world was that the conventional war fighting capabilities of India are superior to the Pakistan military. So in my assessment, after Operation Sindoor, that assessment was dashed. And this is the reason that on the 18th of June, Field Marshal Asif Munir, he had already elevated himself from general to Field Marshal, 5-star. He was invited for lunch at the White House by President Trump.
And if I may intervene, Mr. Trump has publicly stated that his favorite Field Marshal is Field Marshal Munir.
See, it's because of this Operation Sindoor and the outcome as the world understood, that's important. See, what we understand is for own domestic consumption. But the way the world saw it, because of that, what happened is that today Pakistan has got a strategic role from Americans. And the strategic role is
That is described in the national security strategy, and it or derives from that.
No. See, national security strategy, they won't write everything. The key thing, insofar as three countries are concerned, it is very simple in the national security strategy that China has not been identified as a military threat. It has been identified as a big economic threat, which I think is a very sensible thing to do.
To threat to the US.
America.
Yeah.
Which is a very sensible, but this is a question for a further deliberation. But this is the point that has been put in the national security strategy as far as China is concerned, which is a big thing.
National security policy of?
The United States.
Of the
It's
USA.
called, no, not it's called the National Security Strategy.
Yeah.
So it's NSS.
Yeah. So that is released by the White House once a year. So they have described China as an economic challenge. Sorry, not a threat, economic challenge. That's the right word.
Yes, also, because I've heard you on the subject, so I'm asking you to repeat it. Pakistan's military profile increases because they've also identified Iran as a major military threat.
Yes.
And therefore, Pakistan matters more to them militarily under the NSS than does India.
See, first of all, as far as Iran is concerned, in the whole national security strategy, I'm not talking of the Western Hemisphere, that's something entirely different.
Yeah.
I'm talking of that in our region, or in fact the rest of the world, only one country has been identified as an outright enemy, and that is Iran. And Iran has a contiguous border with Pakistan. Pakistanis and Iranians understand each other. They are Muslim nations. And Pakistan understands the Middle East. Now the big problem today of President Trump is that he can do very little against Israel because of the Israel lobby in America. In fact, many commentators are rightly saying, and I agree with them, that it appears that Netanyahu seems to be running the foreign policy of America insofar as Middle East is concerned. Now here, so the way out for him is to keep an eye on what is going on, and interestingly what they have done is three regions which we saw as distinct regions, which is Middle East, we also call that West Asia, Central Asia and South Asia. They have become one. A huge chunk in the Eurasia landmass. And why I'm saying that is that in the month of January, the new ambassador, American ambassador, Sergio Gore is coming to Delhi. And this is the first time that I can remember that an American ambassador in India has been given an additional assignment as a special envoy for South Asia and Central Asian republics. So it is because of this, because the key advisor on what is happening in this region has to be Pakistan. And there, Asim Munir's profile has gone up. Now, Trump can't be speaking with Asim Munir every day how much he may like him. So the person who will be speaking with him regularly is Sergio Gore. In fact, I have argued in one of my shows, I have argued that he has very little to do in India, because in India and the national security strategy vindicates that the role is only of doing commercial deals. And the commercial deal, which is a very unfortunate thing, instead of waiting and seeing what the Trump administration foreign policy will be, within weeks, we had, on 20th of January, he got inaugurated as the president. And on 13th of February, Prime Minister Modi was then in the White House signing the joint statement. And in the joint statement, what we have signed is, without their asking, we have offered them Mission 500. Now what that means is the bilateral trade today between the two countries is around 139-40 billion dollars. We have committed that in the next 3 years, by 2030, We will take it to, in the next 5 years, by 2030, we'll take it to $500 billion. In other words, energy, key things, energy, defense, green technology, then big technology, which is artificial intelligence, everything will come from America. So, in my assessment, Sergio Gore's main job will be to ensure that the mission 500 is on track. As far as strategic role is concerned, he'll be looking at Central Asia, he'll be looking at Middle East. They have an envoy there, Steve Witkoff. But then if you have a man sitting right here in Delhi, it helps. So,
No, but you said that under this, with Iran as the main threat, Pakistan and its relationship with the Muslim countries to the west of Pakistan becomes crucial to US strategy.
that's one part. The second part is, I'm also saying Central Asian Republic.
Yeah.
Now, what has happened in the Central Asian Republic, I won't go into the details, but just to give a sense to the viewers what it is about, Central Asian republics, Kazakhstan is the biggest there. And Kazakhstan has a lot of minerals. So now what the Americans are trying to do is, they are doing now trade. They want a trade with Kazakhstan, and all the minerals and the stuff that they want, the trade, that will happen from Kazakhstan through the Caspian Sea, coming to Azerbaijan, which has very good relations with Pakistan. From Azerbaijan, it goes to Turkey, another country with good relations with Pakistan, and then it goes on to Europe.
So therefore, we have concluded that post Operation Sindoor, both because the world does not support us in our claim that Pakistan was behind Pahalgam, and because of the US national security strategy and China's determination since at least the 5th of August 2019 to be solidly behind Pakistan, we are now in a situation where military confrontation with Chin Pak us, or with Chin Pak, or even with Pak, is fraught with so much risk. Is this the time to convert confrontation into conciliation with both China and Pakistan?
You know, I would like to separate the two things. See, when we talk of military stuff, we are talking of building capabilities. Going to war is the intention, but capabilities take time to build. As far as peace is concerned, I have been a long votary of this. We need peace, normal ties with China, and we need peace with Pakistan. Why? Because you are the expert in this, but my understanding of foreign policy is that the task of the foreign policy, insofar as India is concerned, besides the other factors that you keep in mind, geography and everything, what needs to be kept in mind is that we have 80 crore or 8 million people who are below the poverty line, and the Prime Minister himself has said that they are getting freebies. So we have to look at that. And when you have a country with 1.4 billion population, then services sector will not suffice. You have to go to industrialization. And China is that one country which has successfully done that. I have been arguing for a long time. And it is now moving to next level and next level. So there is so much about management that we can learn from them. There is, perhaps they can invest in our country. I mean, if you have normal relations, they are not forcing us that you do this project. It can be a win-win. It can be a project which both sides want, which helps both sides. Similarly with Pakistan, I am of a very firm opinion that India cannot rise if it has enmity with Pakistan, period. And I can explain also why I say that. We are one civilization.
Yeah, I want Suneet to tell you a little bit about our personal experience in Karachi, where I served for 3 years. She was with me all through those 3 years. And a little incident that took place was that when we were invited to dinner by a former POW of India's, It was such a pleasant evening that as we came back walking, Suneet said to me, "Is this an enemy country?" And for the last 40 years now, that question has been in my mind. Is Pakistan an enemy country? Did you feel, Suneet, when you were in Pakistan, that you were living in an enemy country?
No, because I think perhaps because that was just a very good phase in Indo-Pak relations. And they were so, they really looked up to us, to the Indians. They thought our cinema was much better than theirs. It was just great. Our history was so good, and we went back so many eons. And our leaders had such mass following. Our textiles, our handicrafts, everything was glamorous to them, you know. It was, and we were like Lord and Lady Mani Shankar Aiyar. They gave us so much respect. But the thing is that humanity is the same everywhere. I'm the daughter of an army officer who was killed in the war, towards the end of the Second World War, when I was 18 months old or something like that. And I know what war means. And so when this prisoner of war just laughed and said, you know, I enjoyed your former prisoner of war in Karachi, I enjoyed your hospitality for 3 years. And I loved the fact that he could laugh about it. I identified with him as a human being. I wish as countries we could do that.
Please, over to you.
First of all, on hospitality, I think they are number one country in the world. The few countries that I have seen in the world, nobody comes anywhere close to Pakistanis. That's one. This is my assessment. The second is that as far as politics is concerned, the political leaders is concerned, I must say that in 2022, before they did this thing against Imran Khan. Imran Khan at that time was still the Prime Minister, and they released their first national security policy. And I think I was the only one from India they invited for that. And both the Prime Minister as well as the Army Chief, General Bajwa, he spoke on that. And after this, their talks, I got an opportunity to talk to General Bajwa. And General Bajwa made it very clear that we want peace with India. And the same thing was told to me. I'm talking of before Sindoor. I don't know what's the situation there now. So the point that they make is very clear that yes, Kashmir is an issue, but it's not that Kashmir has to be solved tomorrow. They are not saying that. They are saying, let's talk. So the point is, now, of course, I can understand the compulsion of the government. There are ideological reasons that we can't talk. The point I am making is that we are just wasting time here. Because Pakistan, I have maintained, we are one people in two nations. And that is honestly what we are. And when I see...
But you can't say that about China.
No,
We're not one people in two nations. So you're so clear on Pakistan that I would be interested in expanding this entirely, because unlike you, who have, I think, been 4 times to Pakistan, since I returned from Pakistan as a diplomat, I've been back 40 times. And I've been everywhere in Pakistan. And I entirely endorse your view. But I want us, before we conclude, you've done very well on Pakistan. The only thing I would like to add is that we should restore statehood to Jammu Kashmir. That will immediately open the door to Pakistan and China. The second thing we should do is that we should not leave Operation Sindoor open-ended, but close it. That's the end. It's over. The third thing we should do is restart SARC. And the fourth thing we should do is undertake an uninterrupted and uninterruptible dialogue with Pakistan. And I suspect that you are on my side on all this. I therefore would like to turn to China. With regard to China, what do you think are the 3 or 4 most important things that we should do to conciliate with them rather than confront with them?
See, the first thing is that the border issue is a complex issue. So we have to accept that part. It is complex. Now, what they have been saying is, let's talk on border and let's build overall relationships. And I know that border is not an easy thing. I'll give you one example why I say that. The SR, which is the special representatives, this was formed when Prime Minister Bajpayee went to China in 2003. And the key task of the SRs was, from our side and from their side, RNSA and their person, was very simple, that you look at the border resolution. But today what they are doing is they are looking at border management, because that has become suddenly very important after the line of actual control has been changed. So the point I am making is that keep the border aside, in the sense that keep talking about it. There's no harm in that. But their claims are stand, and take the claims seriously. What that means is not to go to war with them, build your military capabilities. But for that you need peace. You need peace for development, you need peace for military capabilities building, and therefore now open first of all the flights. We have opened certain flights. Why aren't we opening the flight between Delhi and Beijing? Because obviously this would be normal ties. That means the officials, the top officials from both sides, then they can go and interact with one another, and that is precisely what is required. We need to talk with them. I mean, now see here a situation, what a great irony. All these years, the Americans told us, 4 administrations starting from President Obama, that look, China is the enemy. So you have a role for us, and it's a military role in the Indian Ocean region. Now this national security policy of President Trump says China is not the enemy, and you actually have no role. And we are also talking with Chinese. Now President Trump has already committed that he will go to China, to Xinjiang, for the APEC symbols in April of 2026. And then Xi Jinping also has indicated he will come to Washington towards the end of the year. When they are talking, and they are great powers in the multipolar world that we live in today, therefore it is important. China is our neighbor, Russia is our neighbor. I earnestly would want that what the Russians put on the table, let us revive the RIC framework, Russia, India, China, and that is what we need to do, because that makes us an equal partner in the new world order.
Okay, I just want to ask at this point, are you in favor of admitting Pakistan to BRICS? Because the Chinese are going to press for that.
No, we must do that. It's absolutely important. Because if now see, Pakistan has applied for both. They want to be in BRICS, and they also want to be in the BRICS Bank, which is what is called the New Development Bank. They want to be there, and we should graciously say yes to that. Because we should look for peace with Pakistan. See, if you see, I mean, anybody who has a cursory look at the map, you realize that why must we leave Pakistan on the left and then go this side, look for international north-south trading corridor and go to Iran, and Iran is pally with Pakistan. They may not be pally with us because we took the side of Israel in the Israel-Iran war. So why are we creating this complexity? We have an opportunity today in the new multipolar world. Let's simplify things. Let's start talking. They want peace. We should also want peace.
There's another reason I'd like to add before we end the program, and that is the advice that Deng Xiaoping gave to the Chinese. He said, build yourself, but keep quiet about it. We in India seem to be so jealous of China's rise that we are all the time talking about China's rise and either trying to denigrate it, or trying to say that that threatens us, or trying to say that we are catching up with them. Why don't we just accept China's rise as a fact of life, and then silently, as Deng Xiaoping said, rise to the level of China? That will take 20, 30, 40 years. I don't know how long it will take. But instead of being jealous of China, I think we should go back to the concept that we had in the freedom movement, that whereas the renaissance in Asia took place during the freedom movement. The resurgence of Asia will take place after freedom. And we have blocked that resurgence by this hostile relationship on every front with China.
Can I just add one point here?
Please, please.
Regarding China. You see, here is what is hilarious, I find. The Chinese, which are today economically the number one country in the world, and everybody recognizes this, including President Trump, they call themselves a developing country. And we every day say that we'll be Viksat Bharat. For God's sake, do your things like precisely what he said. You are competing with yourself. You're not competing with China, you're not competing with Pakistan. And that is what we don't do.
Thank you so much, Pravin. I think with that, unless you want to add something.
No, that was very interesting. I learnt a lot, and I hope our viewers have enjoyed that too.
Thank you. Namaskar. Jai Hind.